Hey guys, it's Danny. Yes, I'm sick, but I'm okay. Don't mind my voice though. It's gonna sound weird for a few videos, but we're gonna get over it. That's the first bit of news. The second bit of news, we got a new camera, in case you didn't notice the video was a little bit different, which is so amazing. I have been budgeting it for the past 6 months. Finally it's here and it's wonderful, but it will take a little bit of time for me to get adjusted to it, learn it, and yeah, we might see some issues with a few videos, but in time we're gonna correct them. So that's the good news. The bad news is I cannot make beautiful 4K videos for you guys because my computer cannot handle them. It just crashes, and rendering takes a little eternity, to be honest. So for now, we're still gonna make 1080p videos until I can actually get myself a new computer, but the quality should be better, the smoothness of the video should be improved, and so on and so forth. You guys should let me know in the comment section below what you think about the videos, the quality and all of that. And the moment that I'm gonna upload a 4K video, I will let you guys know. So that said, let's get to the subject today. We're gonna talk about some Cattleya orchids. I have three beautiful Cattleyas in bloom right now, which smell wonderful, and even if I'm congested, I can still detect the fragrance. So we're gonna talk about them today. First off, a Cattleya which you guys already seen in one of my community posts yesterday. This is a green Cattleya, you guys, by the name of Cattleyas I. Now, I'm not sure if this particular name is still correct. I'm gonna have to check it out. With all the reclassifications, I would not be surprised if the name changed. Now on the tag here, you also see that I have a variety name. This is incorrect. So the Avo, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, is a variety which is peloric in the sense that it has the two petals here trying to take the shape of the lip, so they're white. This is the normal or standard variety with no peloria traits, which is great because I would much rather have this color throughout the flower than the white color. So it's been a little mislabeled, but I'm okay with it. Now, this orchid, you guys, is one of the most incredible Cattleya orchids I have ever seen because of this color and because of how the flowers look like. They have glossy petals and sepals, very thick and strong flowers. They're not fluffy, they're not those type of Cattleyas which we're all acquainted with. I'm personally a sucker for these types of flowers which are just more sturdy. And I'm not sure how this new camera perceives color. I'm hoping it's gonna be close to reality. My older camera had some issues with some colors, but in reality, this green is absolutely amazing. It is very vivid. It doesn't look like leaves, but more like green apple. It's that type of very, very vivid green, and I absolutely love it. Now, the lip of the orchid is wonderful as well, even though it's not glossy, it's not that waxy, it's a little bit more fluffy. But if you take a look inside, can you see that little spot of yellow there? That is just absolutely beautiful. And the overall color of the lip is not really white. It's a sort of very pale green, let's put it like that. By all means, this is a green flowered orchid. And if you trace back its ancestry, and P.S. I'll put it in a link down below, you will see that we have Cattleya I, which looks pretty much exactly the same as this one, but colored. The Siam Jade is a hybrid of the Alba variety Gutara, and if you look for that one, you'll see it's very similar to the Siam Jade. So this coloration is actually obtained by the lack of the red pigment. Now, the coloration is not the only thing wonderful about this orchid. The fragrance is also beautiful as well. This is a very fragrant orchid, and as I was saying, even if I have some issues breathing, I can still detect the fragrances, so they're pretty strong. Not overwhelming on this one, but pretty noticeable. It's still flowery, maybe something like spring flowers, maybe like narcissus flowers. I think those are the flowers that I would associate with this fragrance the most. But it does have a twist to it. It's not exactly like those fragrances, and I don't believe that I have any orchid in my collection that smells like that. The fragrance is not sweet, maybe slightly spicy. At first I thought I should compare it a little bit with the Ivana Gara. And as for the orchid and its history, this is an orchid that Ana Maria got for me. I made an order at Orchids and More. I think this is where it's coming from. It doesn't say on the tag, I'm not entirely sure, but I think this is where it's coming from. And you know, since transport from Germany to Cyprus takes a long time, I actually bought it through Ana Maria. And at first this orchid was really set back. I believe this is the latest cane it arrived with. And when I received it, it really was not in good condition. It didn't have roots, barely any roots actually. So after I received it, it grew this tiny little cane, which I'm not sure you can see. This super tiny little cane here, and then this cane, which was just slightly bigger, but it had bigger leaves. And the latest cane which bloomed is this one, which looks a little bit more normal. Certainly not the same size as the biggest cane on the orchid, but roots have been produced gradually, and the orchid is now actually pretty good looking, in the sense that it's in pretty good shape. One very interesting thing about this orchid is that we cannot say it's unifoliate or bifoliate, it's multifoliate. I'm not sure if that's a word, don't Google it. I'm not sure if anybody calls Cattleyas multifoliates. But just like the Vanagara, you can see this orchid can have 3 leaves. I think most it can have is 4. I might be mistaken, but definitely 3 leaves it can have on top of each cane. That's absolutely normal. You can see that in the back here I have 2 leaves. This is a sign of stress actually, so I'm curious to see if in the future this orchid will produce more leaves than that. I know for a fact that it can produce more flowers than this. It's actually a sort of cluster bloomer. So stay tuned for future blooms. I'm looking forward to it. This is the first time this orchid blooms for me. It is recovering slowly but surely. It is actually a pretty vigorous plant, I would say. Certainly the progression from each cane to the other was pretty surprising. And the fact that it's blooming now makes me think that it really is a vigorous hybrid, and I cannot recommend it enough. If you are a fan of green flowers, especially with orchids, it's a pretty rare thing to come by. Definitely give it a go. It takes the very same care as any other Cattleya. I had it outside during summertime and it loved it. It grew really nice. It's in leca. It doesn't have issues with self-watering or anything of the sort. It's very robust roots actually. So I think you can tell that I have a lot of confidence in this orchid. If you really do good with Cattleyas, there is no reason why you wouldn't do well with this orchid. Next up, we have an orchid which you guys might already know. It has bloomed before. This is a hybrid. I don't think it has a registered name just yet. I'll put it on the screen. It's a hybrid between a Cattleya bull lady and Laelia synchorana. At least this is how one of the European nurseries lists it. And I actually have 2 of them, which I believe are different. This one comes from a Romanian flower shop. Again, I purchased it through Ana Maria, who sent it to me. But I have another one which one of my viewers actually sent me, and it is actually different than this one. So if you remember last year we had her in bloom, and what can you see there? Oh yes, the color is completely different, and it's not a camera thing, it's not a weird color capture. That one, during winter time, it bloomed so much more red than in summertime. The color was actually a very dark burgundy. This one is the very first time that it blooms in wintertime for me, and the color is really intense indeed. And I think this camera actually captures it pretty well. In reality, I think it's a little bit darker than this, but this particular orchid is not as red as the other one. And hopefully one day I'll have them in bloom at the same time and make some comparisons. So this particular orchid is a wonderful medium-sized, let's say, orchid, which produces a cluster of really nice and quite big flowers, which smell absolutely divine. This is yet another one of those really beautiful fragrances. To me, it reminds me of citrus, but they're a little bit sweet as well. They're still slightly flowery, but I think when I smell them, my mind really goes to citrus flowers, really. Again, not an exact dupe, but you get the idea. Very different than the green Cattleya we saw earlier, and it has a little bit of that Princess Jackie fragrance to it. One thing that I absolutely love about the flowers, and I think you noticed it, is how straight they are. The previous orchid I showed you, the green one, had her petals pointing forward quite a lot. This one, on the other hand, is almost completely straight when it comes to the sepals and petals. Now, this particular orchid, when I received it, again, we had some issues with it. So let me find it. This was the cane it arrived with, the last cane. And at some point it started to just curve under its own weight, and I really didn't know what was going on. I had flowers on it, you can see a spent flower spike here, and then when I looked at the cane, I hope you can still see, let me give you a close-up. Do you see these striations here? Well, the cane simply shriveled for a reason or another. I thought it was sick, to be fully honest, and it became very, very soft. Right now, I cannot really move it much because it hardened off. But I think it got so dehydrated that it actually became soft. This doesn't really happen to Cattleyas. Usually when a cane goes soft, there is an infection there, but in this case it wasn't. So what I did was place a stake next to it and I pinned it to the stake. I pretty much tried to hold it as straight as possible, and in time the cane became more and more rigid, which was great. It wasn't an infection. Then the orchid produced this cane that you see in the back, which bloomed for me, and it's actually not such a bad looking cane. You can see there is no setback on this orchid, and this here we have the best cane so far. It's a really straight and plump cane. This orchid produced initially 4 buds, but 1 blasted. It did so very, very early on when the bud was just a few millimeters. So hopefully next blooming will have more than 3 flowers, but I do have the other one as well. That one didn't create more than 3 flowers either. So I think this is a good flower count, but I think this orchid can do just slightly more than this. Anyway, we'll see in the next year. This has been my beautiful Cattleya I hybrid, if this is a correct labeling for her. I'm not entirely sure, but definitely she's available in flower shops, at least across Europe, and I can definitely recommend it. As you can see, we didn't have all that much drama in recovering this orchid either, and I think the flowers are really rewarding. And the last orchid we're gonna talk about is the wonderful Cattleya Purple Cascade Fragrance Beauty. I think some tags will say Fragrant Beauty, and as the name suggests, she is indeed fragrant. But first, can we just appreciate the wonderful contrast between the white background and this magenta coloring? Now this orchid, you guys, I have been looking for since forever. If you remember, 5 years ago I purchased it, mislabeled, from Schwerter. What I got in return was a Tokyo Magic, which is one of its parents. It's okay though, I loved that one as well, but she wasn't the Purple Cascade. So I was lucky enough to find it at Schwerter and I purchased it, and this time it's not mislabeled. So they did get it right this time, and I'm so happy because I really do enjoy this one more than the Tokyo Magic, which still was beautiful, but this one is just so much more better. The flowering habit of this orchid is to create an upright flower spike with a cluster of blooms at the top. The flowers are actually peloric, meaning that the petals are trying to imitate the lip color-wise and pattern-wise. That's why you have these splashes of magenta on the petals only. And fun fact, all of these orchids which have splashes, or 99% at least, have in their parentage the Cattleya intermedia variety Queenie, which gives this trait to its hybrids, and usually it is a dominant gene. Except from the beautiful appearance of the flowers, well, she's also very fragrant, hence the name, right? This orchid is a typical Cattleya fragrance, to me at least. It has that lily-like fragrance to me, and I'm perfectly fine with it because I love the smell of lilies, but this is a fragrance which I find a lot with a lot of Cattleya hybrids and species. With this particular one, it appears to be quite intense. Even if I'm sick, I can still detect it, so I'm not sure if it's a good idea to keep this orchid in the same room with you if you have some issues with strong fragrances. Even though the fragrance is lovely, I think it can get overpowering, so be careful with that. But other than that, she's just perfect. She is everything that I imagined she would be. And let's just take a look at the entire orchid right now because, well, this is a big girl. Now this side is the older growth, and this is the growth which matured in my care. For whatever reason, it kind of leaned to one side as the root system grew, and it pushed, I think, the orchid. But that's okay, she will get straightened up. But you can see the flower spike has a little question mark shape to it. What to do? So she did mature this growth, if I'm not mistaken, when she arrived to me, and then the sheath that was present just dried, and I thought she would not bloom. She did create this new growth for me in the meantime, which created a sheath. You can see it's still green and it's producing 2 more buds here. You can see this bulb is a little tinier than this one. This means the orchid suffered a little bit of setback due to the repotting, adjustment to a new environment, and so on. Not a whole lot though, but what I didn't know was that she was working on a flower spike in the dried sheath. This is the type of orchid which does that. The Tokyo Magic, its parent, did that as well. So keep in mind with both of these orchids, you can have dried sheaths that will still bloom. There's a high chance they will still bloom. And at the same time, I guess she wants to bloom on this new cane, not with the same amount of energy. You can see only 2 flowers here. But that's okay, it's understandable. I'm thinking the next growths will bloom in their own time. I think this is just a little mishap of having 2 flower spikes at the same time. But you can see the blooming pattern of this orchid is to create a pretty long, upright, pretty strong flower spike. Unlike the other 2, one thing I wanted to mention here, I think I've seen this in one of the comment sections of one of my videos, about the flower spikes, and particularly with the hybrids. You'll have spikes that just sit upright, like this one, and then some that just lean over. There's nothing wrong with an orchid which does that. You should try and stake it. The reason it does it is that it might have in its parentage an orchid which doesn't create big flowers or too many flowers, so it doesn't really need to put on a very thick, strong flower spike, crossed with something that does create big flowers or a big number of flowers. So the end result might be an orchid with very big flowers but with a thin flower spike, which cannot sit upright, and then it just flops over. You'll see it as it develops, it's straight, and when the flowers are just about to open, it starts to flop over under the weight. It doesn't mean the orchid is dehydrated or it lacks nutrients or anything of the sorts, nothing of the sorts. It means it's just genetics, pretty much. Sometimes the things we combine are not 100% compatible, case in which you need to help out the orchid a little bit, stake the flower spike or stake the cane, and if the flower spike is not long enough, just stake it right beneath the flowers as well, because if you let it be, in extreme cases, it will actually just break under the weight of the flower. It really depends on the hybrid, but just so you know, don't start to pump fertilizers because your Cattleya flower spike leans to one side. It has nothing to do with that. In most cases, let's say. But you will see a lot of Cattleyas, such as this one, also the Monte Elegante, all of these which create a cluster on top, they do tend to sit upright. So well, imagine combining this one with my Cattleya Chester, which creates 1 or 2 little flowers on a very tiny flimsy flower spike. You can imagine that we can have a cluster type orchid with a very flimsy flower spike, and they just don't go together. That's what happens. So with that said, I think it is time to end the video. I think you noticed, and I have to tell you guys as well, I am not completely 100% having the utmost control over everything, and that makes me a little uncertain. So if this video was slightly shaky and I seemed a lot more concerned than usual about the camera, it's because I am. I don't know this camera. I try to figure out the focus on this thing. It has really smart features. I just need to understand them and know how to apply them. Also with the editing, I'm a little nervous how it will go. Hopefully my computer will not crash, and I hope I will get this video on time today. So yeah, that's why this video might be a little on the run, let's put it like that. It's because I am actually concerned with all of these things. It's not like I usually do it mechanically already. But yeah, let me know your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Does this look better than usual? And I'll try to figure out the camera and yeah, fix whatever I need to fix. With that said, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and you know the drill. Like or dislike this video below, subscribe to my channel for regular orchid videos, tutorials, Q&As, and other fun orchid subjects. And if you like YouTube to notify you whenever I upload a new video, just turn on notifications for my channel. Also, if you're curious about my setup or you want to know what I use in my grow space, expand the description. I have everything listed there. And with that said, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye!